Hey everybody, welcome back to the Graphic Multiverse. I'm your host, Paul, joined with Rob.
Hello.
Rob, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing, I guess you could say, extremely well, because this is a very, very, very incredibly special episode. Not that the others haven't been, but this is in a league of its own. We have two very special, important guests on the show. I'm so excited and proud to announce that today we have Eric and Julia Lewald on the show with us today. You may know them from a little show that is near and dear to our hearts, X-Men, the animated series. And they recently came out with a fantastic book, which I cannot recommend enough. You gotta check it out. X-Men, the art and making of the animated series. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting us on. This is a real treat.
Oh,
yeah, thanks, Paul.
Oh, just thank you for saying yes. It felt like I just couldn't believe the response and your generosity, and just working with me, scheduling and yeah, just making it all happen, and also making our childhoods amazing, as wonderful as they are. Do you ever get sick of hearing that, of people saying like, "You guys shaped my childhood. You guys made me a nerd. It's all your fault."
We because we didn't know at the time in the 90s, way back when, we just it was a gig. It was an amazing gig. It was our favorite one, but then we just went on to the next job and the next job. And since our fans aren't there in front of us, it's not like we're, say, rock musicians or theater people. We didn't get a sense of that, and we've had that experience. Obviously, I mean, when we were young, one of the things we bonded on was the original Star Trek, and that she came out here to LA from Texas, and I came from Tennessee, and we bumped into each other at Disney, and then started Star Trek geeking at each other.
Oh, you think you know it? What about this? Oh, you think you know it? Well, what about this? So we get that.
Yeah, and we get that the stuff that really stays with you all your life, and this doesn't change over the years, is the stuff that hits you between about ages 9 and 13. I mean, that's for some reason, songs, movies, TV shows just grab you by your heart, and they're there 50 years later.
Yeah.
And that's the fact that people at cons have been coming up to us and saying, "Well, your show did that to us."
Oh,
it just kills us.
Well, and again, it's been 30 years, but during that time, the whole world of social media has happened. We had not been attending cons or festivals until we had the wonderful excuse of the first book Eric did, which was kind of for the 25th anniversary of the book, of the show. We had not been going out. We had not been in a place to hear this from folks, so we're loving it.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We called, to do the book. I said, we're going to interview everybody. And we'd never met the cast because they were in Toronto, Canada, and we were down here in LA. And we'd listen to we'd listen each week to their performances on cassette set by snail mail and give notes and then go on to the next one. But we got to know them all while we were doing the first book 5 years ago. And that was just incredible. And finding out that as this whole world of cons has exploded and social media has exploded, these people that had done this landmark thing, nobody was calling them. Nobody knew that. Keldon, who's that? It's Wolverine's voice.
I compare it to like Kevin Conroy and the geniuses over at Batman the Animated Series. Yeah. They deservedly have been lauded since the beginning.
They had some good organization out here. They had some good PR people. So people knew who they were from the get-go. But we were kind of a more low budget, slapped together project. And so as soon as it was over, everybody went off to other stuff, and the show was forgotten. And if they could syndicate it some places, great. If they couldn't,
the rights fell apart into so many separate hands that there was no one organizing force behind it, like say Star Trek and Paramount, or Warner Brothers and Batman. Yeah. So for 20 odd years, it's just kind of been out.
Yeah, I mean, it took them 8 or 9 years to decide to do DVDs. Where's there's a no-brainer. They probably made $500 million off of them. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, why not?" And that just shows how clueless the business people around the show.
Not a box set, no extras, no
I'm
Blu-ray.
surprised it took so long for the DVD. I remember when that came out, that was, that kind of felt like finding the Grail because I was saying earlier before we started recording that, I couldn't always kind of catch the following episode. So I'd have to try to hunt down the VHS tapes. And that felt like hunting down back issues. I was like, well, I have 10, I have 13, I need 11 and 12, and then, and for years not knowing, I don't know how in the hell that story arc wrapped up. I don't know what's going on with Mr. Sinister in the Savage Land. It's bothered me for years. It's like, who killed JFK? What happened in the Savage Land? Like these great unsolved mysteries. And I remember one year, my mom got me a tape. Like, oh, is this the one you wanted? And it was like volume 10. I'm like, someday. Yeah, someday. So it felt so rewarding to watch it all those years later. And I think what was also really amazing was the quality of it, that really it stood the test of time. And not just from the animation, but the acting, the stories. They still connected and hit in all the right places. Mainly because I think I've kind of matured a little bit. Since when I was a kid and I watched them to now, it's like, oh man, like I'm really feeling for Logan right now. It's just amazing. And again, hats off to you because I feel like those type of stories, those productions, they're lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. And the cool thing for us was, we worked on over 40 different shows over the years. You get little chances, do a couple scripts here, a couple scripts there, run something for 6 months, whatever. Over the years, we've kind of held our careers together. And most of the time, you've got really wonderful people, creative people you're working with, but you're not allowed to be as ambitious as we were in this show. We're told, make it simple. Our merchandisers are selling to 6 to 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
Just take all the big words out. To stop making it so emotionally challenging. And we'd fight them every time, and you do your best. In the end, at the end of the day, they're paying for everything. There's a limit to what you can do. With X-Men, these people, Margaret Lesch and Sidney Iwan are just sitting us down and saying, make these shows for yourselves, make them as challenging as you can. If you think you're pushing the edge of what kids TV can do, push it a little farther. And it was like all of us, the writers and the artists were looking at, is this real? I mean, are we? So there's an immense amount of gratitude that we had the shot.
Mm-hmm.
We could have screwed it up, but.
And again, just to clarify who we are in the X-Men universe, I got to write on the show, got to do Days of Future Past Part 1, a few other scripts, and got to pitch and was a fly on the wall for the whole series run. Yeah. You were the guy who developed it for television and was in charge of every script, every draft of every script, every idea for the whole series run.
And it was kind of, again, pre-internet, pre-social media. So thank goodness, one of the gifts we were given, nobody was aware of what we were doing really, except for the people at Marvel. And they were busy getting the comic books out. They were a small company. And going
bankrupt.
Yeah. And going bankrupt. So they didn't have, the time to micromanage us. The fans weren't aware of what we were doing. And we occasionally get pushback from things like television stations, affiliates that were going to run the show. What is all this adult stuff in this show? So we get a little pushback from them. And every time we got pushback, the little bits of pushback we got, Margaret and Cindy would have our backs. And there were times when it was almost to the point where we or a couple of the artists that were wanting to go in this direction were told, well, we're going to fire you because this is not going to sell cereal. And they backed us up, and the crises blew over, and it was cool. But it's hard to explain what a great opportunity it was, and what a good setup that Stan and Jack Kirby set up, just as the idea of the evolution of mankind and these people finding themselves being both other, different, and special and powerful at the same time. It was a great setup, taken very much to the next level by Len Wein and Chris Claremont when they were reborn after after they drifted off into reprints early. Wow. Those people gave us a nice setup that, again, we could have blown, but we couldn't have made a special show like this with a lousy setup. It's a beautiful start for a group of stories.
Mm-hmm. And can we clarify? Did we explain who Margaret Lesch was?
She was president of Fox Kids Television,
which was one of the brand new networks, at the time. Mm-hmm. It was ABC, CBS, NBC. Boom,
that's right.
That was it.
Yeah, she'd been in the business 15, 20 years. She'd worked at Hanna-Barbera and supervised a bunch of their big hits. She had been at Marvel Productions for 6 or 7 years and supervised hits like, no Marvel hits. It's just like Marvel wasn't working. The people weren't buying it out here.
Yeah, you couldn't sell it, it sounds like, from what I understand from the book.
You are correct.
She tried for 10 years to get the networks,
ABC, NBC, CBS,
who were the only buyers at the time, mm-hmm. to go for an X-Men show. And they just said, nah, it's a bunch of geeks living in their basements. This is not, there might be a million of them that read, there might be a million of them that read the comic books, but we need 3 or 4 million kids to watch this, and we'll never get that big an audience. So Margaret, come on, stop with the X-Men. Give me something sweet and silly. And she pushed and she pushed. Finally, she never was successful selling it. Finally, she had to become her own network person to greenlight the thing. And even then, her boss at Fox said, I don't get this. This is really adult. Right. Is this important to you, Margaret? And she said, yes. You can fire me if it doesn't work. And
I'll give you 13 episodes. That's all you get.
And we were all let go after 13 episodes because they just assumed it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
That is wild. You look at the world we live in now, and it's hard to imagine, somebody saying no to X-Men. I feel like it would be a story that could sell itself, but it's interesting. You bring in, or you mentioned, the big, complex, story elements. That was one of the things I loved about this show, was what it did for my family life. Because I would watch this with my mom, my dad, and my stepdad, not all together, but we would, but it was great because they could get glued to it, and it really opened up a discussion about racism and some of the real world problems. Like, I love the fact that you don't really have any supervillains in Night of the Sentinels. You have Sabretooth in the beginning throwing a car around, but otherwise it's just it's bigotry is the main supervillain. And I was amazed that I was telling my wife last night, this is a Saturday morning cartoon, and they're there's no Magneto. It's a bunch of Sentinels built by humans who hate and fear what they don't understand.
Yeah, and Night of the Sentinel, speaking of that, is the episode growing up I probably watched at least like 1,000 times, because I'm pretty sure I got the VHS tape at Pizza Hut. You mentioned having a Pizza Hut menu.
Yes.
Yep, Pizza Hut.
And I'm pretty sure when I was very little, I got that tape from Pizza Hut, and I just would watch it over and over and over until like the cardboard box it came in just like disintegrated. But this episode gave me a chance to jump on Disney Plus and start revisiting a bunch of my favorite episodes. And Night of the Sentinels, I was just like, wow, what a great like 2-parter kickoff to this series. Like you mentioned,
that could be a movie.
It is like very adult, because you get right into like, they're like, oh, people hate these people for no reason really. And then that like goes throughout the entire series. Just like the seriousness of even just like the Friends of Humanity showing up here and there. And I'm like, man, this is heavy.
Well, and that was a decision you had to make from the very beginning. Yeah. And that was, you got some pushback on with you and your head writer, Mark Edens, not having Magneto in the first episode, not bringing in Apocalypse for the first episode.
Yeah, there were people at Marvel, a couple people that were just saying, look, guys, we have this big group of super villains. Why are you making people the problem and Magneto so much more important? We don't get this. And we laid out 3 or 4 reasons, but the main one was we didn't want this to be professional wrestling. We didn't
we love.
Right. Yeah. It's good. So that's it. We didn't want it to be bad mutant versus good mutant of the week battling to see who wins, which some of the books were, and a lot of superhero books are, but there was a whole strain of the books that was much more about how these mutants weren't integrating into normal human society. And that's what got us excited as writers. My buddy Mark Edens and I, who laid out the first 2 seasons, friends back from college in Tennessee. That's just grabbed us. I mean, we loved very adult movies, our historical epics, war movies, westerns, moral tales, tragedies. So we started intense, and then we're told you can't really show, with very rare exceptions, you can't really show actual violence, blood, killing, sex. I mean, we said, okay, well, then we have to make it really emotionally intense if people are going to be compelled to watch it.
Right.
We were comparing it kind of to Hercules and Xena, which were on at the time, which were like right on the edge of an R-rated movie. And so we can't have Xena and her girlfriend naked in a hot tub. We can't have, Hercules slashing people in half with a sword. We have to find some ways to make the emotions the thing that brings people back after the commercial. So it was almost kind of a gift that we had to do it within the strictures of children's television.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, speaking of Night of the Sentinels, like half of that story, I feel like, is Wolverine like dealing with the grief of Morph being killed. It strangely reminded me of like the sad montage in Rocky IV after Apollo Creed died.
Yes.
Wolverine jumps on his motorcycle and goes off into town, and I was like, man, this is like, I loved it as a kid because it's like, cool, Wolverine fighting Sentinels and stuff. But watching it as an adult, I'm like, man, this is emotional. He's got some stuff to work out.
And the internal conflict in the team, like Cyclops. Mm-hmm. Wolverine punching Cyclops. Like, what are you doing, man? We don't leave nobody behind.
That's the
one time I think in 76 episodes where one of the team gets to punch another one of the team.
And that was a big debate. It was imitatable behavior, and you can't let kids see that. Yeah. But
we had a wonderful censor, a wonderful broadcast standards lady named Avery Coburn. And she let us have two things in Night of the Sentinels that were really difficult and were just not allowed before. One of them was killing Morph, which we just started like day one. Mark and I decided to make this realistic, to give it some consequences. One of the team has to die.
And I said, "Oh, good luck."
Yeah. And so in fact, we included Morph specifically to die.
Yeah.
He's like the guy with the red shirt in Star Trek.
But he has a name.
But more. I mean, and we thought it was even more effective, we think, because he seemed like he's part of the overall team and everybody loved him.
They each had their own relationship that was set up very quickly and cleanly in the first part. And then the reaction you see from each of them upon realizing that he has been killed is just, oh my God.
And so the censor was really good about it. He says, okay, look, I'm going to give you this one time. He has to die off screen. This is not going to be gratuitous. And it's going to be all about the grief. And we agreed. They said, that's why we want it in there. And the fact that you see close-ups of everybody sensing it, it made it twice as, impactful.
So then when Wolverine comes down the ramp and clocks Cyclops in the gut, that was a huge deal. But Avery Coburn understood that in this one moment, this is his visceral reaction to the death of someone he loves. And you got to have that moment.
Yeah, that wasn't a fun punch that we got to enjoy. It wasn't a goofy bar fight where we get to see. It was out of his grief. So, yeah.
Along those same lines, Morph was supposed to stay dead.
He really was.
Interesting.
Never read the books. Yeah, but but Sydney called.
Oh, we were all let go after 13 episodes. So we were on different projects.
And then we were brought back real fast, about 2/3 of us, because the others couldn't come back. But the other of us came back and said, okay, come up with the second season. And we're doing it. And we get this phone call saying, oh, guys, about Morph? So what about Morph? He said, well, this was maybe March of 1993, where the 6 or 7 episodes had played. We had a focus group of 9-year-olds, and we asked them who their favorite, after 7 episodes, who their favorite character was, and Morph won by a landslide. And so
never have a focus group.
Never have a focus group.
Especially with 9-year-olds.
So after fighting for 2 weeks to be able to kill him, they said, can you please find a way to bring him back? It was off screen, da-da-da-da. So we did, and we were really miserable for a day or two. Then we kind of, okay, well, maybe we can have some fun with this and make him damaged Morph and whatever.
And I think that was really profound.
Yeah,
the way he did come back.
PTSD Morph.
Again, a big issue.
But at the time, it was really depressing.
Yeah. Well, he's almost kind of like Winter Soldier before Winter Soldier. He was, the buddy that was lost. He came back. He's on the wrong side. He's confused. Doesn't know who he is. I remember, I think it was the episode. What was it when Scott and Jean got married, and like you see the priest walking away, and he changes to morph. I mean, I'm like getting goosebumps thinking about it. I'd be like, oh my god! Like my wife said it best. X-Men was like a soap opera for kids because it was just like twists and turns, and it was like what's going on between Scott, Jean, and Logan, and all the relationships, and
all the people we worked for got that it was a soap opera. That it was all about the characters, and because it's an action show, we need a certain amount of fighting. We got to show the powers. These are superpowered people. We can't have them just walking around not using their powers. So there's certain things like a certain number of gunfights in a Western, but that's not what the show. I mean, the show is about the characters.
Yeah,
right.
And we were able to focus from that on from the beginning. It really helped in picking stories because that was the hardest part. Once we had a story idea we all kind of agreed on, we had some very good writers, and we just knew that the craft would kick in and the stories would be good. But picking the right ones.
And you had to pick a team when you got tapped to come in and do the X-Men. It was at that fulcrum of 1992 February when there had been 30 years of comic books up to that point.
Yeah.
So who was going to be on the X-Men animated series team?
Yeah, it was an interesting question in the first day when everybody, like 30 people, got together and said, "What's the show going to be?" And they said, who's going to be the X-Men? Because I went back and counted. There were 29 different people over those years that had been an X-Men for at least say 6 issues. And so it could have been, but so we very much picked them to complement each other and to be as different from each other as possible. So it wasn't like 6 big gruff guys,
which would have been fun. But
Wolverine and Cable and Colossus and Thunderbird would not make nearly as interesting. It would make the writing a lot harder. We picked, okay, how can these people be as different from each other as possible? And that was. And Marvel had a couple people they wanted to show Gambit and Jubilee, and
they were newer to the teams.
Yeah, and Fox had an idea or two, but the 8 or 9 we ended up with, we fleshed it out with that idea of having them be as different from each other as possible.
Now, it sounds like, from what I understand from the book, that your knowledge of X-Men prior to I love the opening, by the way, where it's like, we're doing X-Men, or we're not doing Killer Tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah.
It just shows how silly people are. I mean, everybody loves mystery, and we're not going to tell the business that we're going to do an X-Men TV show. Keep it quiet, And so for 2 or 3 months, they're trying to get a team together and decide whether they're going to do this thing, and they're whispering to each person, "Well, are you going to be available? Can I lock you in for 6 months?"
And we love work. Trust me,
it's always we said, "Sure, what you got?" And Killer Tomatoes sounded like it would have been fun. And then getting that, and then guys, guess that was just a cover. That was, it was a fig leaf. What we're really holding you for is for this X-Men show, and that again was a great gift that Mark and I didn't know the X-Men. The artists knew them like gospel. The artists lived them. And
the artists, Larry Houston,
Will Mineo,
meaning that they came to this with the encyclopedic knowledge. Again, at a time, you couldn't just tap it into your Google search and find something. They already had the books and the Marvel, Marvel Universe booklet. They were sending you photocopies back then.
You see some of that in the book where we show how primitive, we get Xerox copies. Marvel didn't even have like a lot of extra old issues to send us. I said, "Well, we don't know this character very well. Do you have anything?" And they'd get some intern to go down and Xerox a couple of copies of the one copy they had of an old, and then they snail mail that to us, and we get it a week later, and we'd have to be writing them as guys. We got to finish one of these every week. We can't take a week doing this. Can you maybe fax the next one?
Faxing was a whole big deal.
Faxing was the hot thing.
And a reminder, Marvel was the main head. Marvel was in New York, and this production was happening in Los Angeles with the voices in Toronto and the animation happening overseas.
In Korea, yeah.
it's hard to realize, but that distance between New York and California meant that businesses shut down at 3 o'clock their time, 6 o'clock our time. There was no communication over the weekend. No one had whatever.
6 o'clock their time, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, there was no communication over the weekend. People didn't have cell phones. Email was had that, but it was not
really what people used yet.
It would take a writer would have a script for you, and what was okay.
Or the writer would have a script for me. They would either drive by with a floppy disk and drop it off.
Yep.
Or the really hot way to do it was the Writers Guild had a place up on the web was a bulletin board,
message board,
bulletin board, where they would over their dial-up modem, they would send it to the bulletin board. It'd take about 30 minutes for it to go to one script, which now takes a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Then they would have to call me and say it's on the bulletin board, and then I would download it so it's about an hour
just to transfer that material
to get a 40-page script, which is it's not even a megabyte file.
You could attach it to a text message.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how primitive. But yeah, writers speeding by and honking their horn outside her house, waving floppy disks, saying, "I've got it! I finished the draft."
Yeah. No, it was again, but that also kind of shaped the show because Marvel was very busy in New York, but had to, but happening out here in Los Angeles under the head Margaret Lesch and her right hand man Sidney Iwater, and then with folks who knew it cold, like Will Mineo and Larry Houston, you got to play in a certain kind of sandbox.
Yeah, really without the oversight and the thing that we tell people that they cannot grok in 2021 with Marvel was they got a fee from Fox for a license fee for doing the show, but they didn't have final say, didn't have final cut. If Margaret and we liked a story and the guy at Marvel read it and said, "God, I hate this. This is not a very good X-Men story," we just say, "Well, I'm sorry, we couldn't agree on this one, but we're going to produce it anyway. Thank you for your input." which is not, again, today Marvel is probably the most successful company in the history of the world, and they care very much what their stories get told, and it's just a whole different world.
Yeah,
it's so crazy to say that too, because I feel like your X-Men show kind of shaped like the characters so much. Like when I think of like the characterizations of like Wolverine, Cyclops, Rogue, Storm, all those characters, like the first thing I think of is the animated series version of them, especially Storm, the animated series, and Rogue are like, there's no better version of those characters to me.
Yeah. Is there voices in my head when I read the comics, like especially Cal Dodd. I mean, that's his Logan. That's my Logan that I hear when I read the books. It's the same with Cyclops and Gambit. And I have to say too, I always love the line where Wolverine says, "Out of the way, Gumbo." Like I laugh every time, especially when I learn what Gumbo was and where Gambit's from. I'm like, that is like, forget Shakespeare, man. That is like that. I mean, everybody put your pencils away. The epitome of writing has been tapped. This is, I mean, I laugh every time.
Wonderful. It's an ethnic slur, but it's a funny one. So
it's not, but yeah.
Well, it's great. Gambit, Gumbo. I mean, it's just, it works on so many levels. I was going to say real quick, I love in one of the Xeroxes in the book of Charles Xavier. And there's like a big axe, like, no, he can't walk. He's in a floating wheelchair now. And it's like,
but that was the level of material.
Because we were digging through all the reference material, and they'd gone through evolutions like any comic book series or soap opera does, where people change. And Larry wanted to make sure that I understood. Yeah, he walked for a few years, but we're not using that version. And just a lot of those decisions we had to make so that we could try to be consistent. I mean, I know we had some continuity errors here and there that we wish could fix, but there weren't that many. I mean, I think given the speed we worked at pretty well, not messing up the canon.
One point I can bring up, it was the Slave Island episode in season 1. Again, we were all let go at the end. I mean, it was a 13 episode order. That was it. People have pointed out in the last couple of years, well, now the X-Men crossed paths with XYZ on Slave Island.
Mystique and blah.
Right. They were there in the background. So when they came up, and then season 3 and 4, and no one recognized them, they met before. Well, the catch of that was we didn't realize there was going to be another season, so we didn't know that they were going to be bumping into these people again.
And also Larry
Houston,
who really made this wonderful for fans. We just said, well, there's 20 enslaved mutants there. So he just went, all right. And just went through the books, he and his artists, and he put all his favorite people there.
Called Mutant 1, Mutant 2, Mutant 3. Didn't call them by name because the lawyers would not allow that.
And so they were kind of in the background, and some of them, most of them didn't have dialogue.
Right.
So they weren't called out on a character sheet. So when they were used again a season or two later, a couple of them got forgotten.
Yeah.
But it's
there you go.
Yeah, that's one of the best.
It never bothered me.
See?
Yeah. You said you said one of the things you liked about the show was all the different little Easter eggs of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like just I was watching what episode was it? Sanctuary, when Magneto and the Acolytes and stuff earlier today, actually. And there's the scene when like they come down in Africa, and I was like, "Is that Black Panther on the little rock?"
Yes.
And I was like, "That's amazing."
Right. Yep.
That's Larry.
That's
Larry cheating. And in Phoenix Saga, when Xavier's having nightmares and there's somebody on the subway, it's Deadpool.
Yep.
Deadpool had just come out in 93.
The book,
the comic book, and so Larry had just seen, oh, this is a cool looking character, so he threw him in there in the nightmare scene without permission, of course.
I love it. Oh, that's so great. When you were working on the show, was there any like story arcs that you were like kind of like dreading to do but was mandated? Like, was there like, okay, you guys got to do the Phoenix Saga, and it's like, oh man, how do we do the Phoenix Saga as a cartoon? Because that couldn't have been an easy adaptation, but I think it's also the best. I mean, compared to what X3 and Dark Phoenix, I mean, yours is the best. I think it just kind of captures everything that needs to be captured. But was that like, oh god, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole?
Actually, that's so our ignorance helped in this, because like when she got Days of Future Past, we were aware. We'd written out 8 or 9 of the first season, just story ideas to go from beginning to end. And someone mentioned,
I think it was Larry Houston.
Maybe we could squeeze in Days of Future Past here, maybe with a slightly different cast, but it might fit in this old thing with the Sentinels. And we talked to Marvel, and they were very up for it. And we were made aware, and Julia was made aware, this is a crown jewel.
Oh, okay.
So she probably sweated. A bit. But
not enough. I think sweated a lot.
Yeah, if she'd known better how big a deal this was, it would have been more unnerving.
You can't use Kitty Pryde, and it has to be a so wait, whoa.
Yeah. But on the Phoenix ones, that actually the reverse happened. That was a real gift, because we've done 2 seasons, 26 episodes, and as I said, the hardest part was coming up with a story idea that we liked and that everybody liked and signed off on. You might pitch 10 of them, and 2 of them would go through, and okay, I've worked for a week on these 10, and they only like 2 of them.
And there weren't that many direct adaptations.
Yeah,
it was more the sensation of the story.
The first 26, the only one that was an absolutely direct adaptation was Days of Future Past. The others used bits and pieces from some stories, or mostly the original. But then we went up and had a meeting with Marvel in New York.
To New York, yeah.
Larry Houston and Sydney and I, and they said, okay, well, we're going to commit to 39 more. That was this huge gift.
Oh my God.
We had 2 small children, crawling around, needing diapers, and as opposed to getting 6 months of work at a time, we were just now guaranteed, over 2 years of income. Yeah. And so we were excited about that. And they said, okay, well now, but you have to come up with 39 new stories. Okay, that was weighing on us. They said, however, if you do the Phoenix Saga and Dark Phoenix Saga, that's 9 of them right there. So it would, to me, my anxiety was not finding 39 cool stories for these people, and being told, well, here, we're all committed to these 2 big stories. And it also was a real gift, because writers all like writing longer and longer. And 2-parters are more fun than 1, 3-parters more fun than 2. There's just stuff that you can build up over the story, so the fact, we get a 5-parter and a 4-parter. So that was very cool. And the other nice thing about the Phoenix Saga, not the Dark Phoenix Saga, which was done a little more quickly, but when we were assigned that, we came back from New York, we had more time than usual. It wasn't like once a week. It was like 2 every 3 weeks. We were giving a little more time, and they're giving us a little more time to kind of ramp up because they committed to all these 39. There was going to be a break in production. And so I asked them, Mark Edens and Michael Edens, his brother, were friends of mine from college, and we've written a lot of stuff together and have a real shorthand. Can I just use the 2 of them for all 5 of those episodes? Because what we usually do is you'd hand it to 5 different people, and I would make sure that it all kind of held together and made sense, but you'd have 5 different writers with kind of slightly different points of view, tone, whatever, focus. And the 3 of us just got to write that together and had a little extra time, and not a bunch of other people with, maybe wanting to see it a different way. So that was a real gift to me, both getting to have 5 checked off and be able to do it with my 2 buddies.
Yeah, that is a gift. And I'm so grateful that you guys got to do the multi-part story arcs. So, because that was one of my favorite things about the show was that, because I had recently watched that first season, and that just, that feels like a 13-part story, because it is. And, I love that you can't watch them out of order. I love that. I thought it just kind of captured the spirit of the comic so well. I think it's going to be astounding for you just to kind of see the legacy that has come from this show. Just recently I got a Mondo print of Night of the Sentinels.
Oh my God, you got the print?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is. I told Rob, because Rob and I we never get Mondo prints. They sell out so quickly.
So hard.
Yeah, so I got that. I also got the Wolverine figure of him laying in bed.
Yes. Wolverine Crush.
Oh my God,
we got a prototype.
That's fantastic.
Oh, that's amazing.
The box is going to be spectacular. This is without the printing on the box.
I saw it, and I was like, thank God PayPal had a payment plan. I was like, it comes with the frame. Like I have to get that. I'm going to die if I don't.
Yeah, the Mondo people are wonderful.
Oh my goodness.
And they're going to be more figures that size from different people from the show coming out over the next year and a half.
Which stunned us.
I'm working overtime.
That these companies have committed.
There goes your savings account.
They've committed to the animated series characters, which is like, oh my God, Mondo, and we understand Hasbro has got a line coming out. It's like that blows our heads right there.
Yeah,
this happened.
That was the thing. We realized this at cons, and the thing. This, along with people's personal testimonials, which is a big deal when people come and say, you don't know how much this meant to me. I watched the episode with my grandma as she passed.
Oh, Jesus,
things like all these incredibly personal stories of what the show meant to them. But when we're going to cons and see 95% of the cosplay are our X-Men, not the movie X-Men. And that was just... I hate to be petty, but that was, it was really gratifying. That's what people want to dress up as.
And I will take it to the ends of the earth that you had 30 years of X-Men comic books that kept on going, and you've got $1 billion film franchise now. But I do believe in my heart that X-Men, the animated series, served as a gateway for the audience to find the X-Men that then begat the $1 billion film franchise.
Oh, amen to that. It's absolutely true. Because I remember, when the movie was coming out, that was when I was trying to hunt down those VHS tapes, because I just I need to fill that X-shaped hole, and it's so great to see the legacy live on and how it's being so well honored, especially when you see like some of like the Rogue figures that come out with the Xavier floating chair. I wanted a Charles Xavier figure, especially he's got the little his little I'm thinking pose, and it's all from the show, the green suit, the blue and black striped tie. That's got to be it's such a gratifying feeling. And you had mentioned in the book as well about how rewarding it was. To have your children dress up like these characters for Halloween.
How mind-blowing is that?
What a gift.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah, no, we cannot. Yeah.
My parents gave me reasons to go to therapy, and and you guys, you have.
I'm not saying we didn't too. But ask them, but
yeah, they got it, and
yeah.
they even when they were teenagers, they would be talking to us, and saying. I mean, this was during the kind of the middle years when we were unaware that the show was still playing, or that
you couldn't find
people
it,
were still
right.
watching. It was a big deal. And they both said, "No, Mom, Dad, all of our friends really love the show. You don't understand. It's still a big deal." Oh, okay, because we were on to show 11 after that,
and it wasn't on Disney Plus. It wasn't easily available. So yeah,
like you said, before the DVD box set came out, it was like I remember downloading like episodes off of like Napster or like Kazaa, getting like viruses when I was like 13, trying to just watch some of these episodes. But yeah, Disney Plus is kind of a gift now for going back to all these shows. Like I loaded a bunch of episodes onto my iPad and I take the train into the city for work. So I was like, this is the best way to kill a train ride.
That's outstanding. Although we do got to warn you, they don't have them in order. They do not have them in correct order.
I mean, it's
the most egregious one is.
Yeah, it's in both books. Just the fact there was production problem, and the episode that was supposed to come right after the Phoenix Saga, which has them grieving about Jean being dead, was not shown for 2 years after that.
2 years.
And we've tried to send notes to people at Disney Plus.
We don't know people.
And we don't know people at Disney Plus, so they're not really getting through.
But so watch the Phoenix Saga and then skip to No Mutant is an Island. That's the one that's supposed to follow it.
When Scott leaves the X-Men because he's grieving over Jean so bad.
Right.
Can I just say that we are so grateful that social media wasn't a thing back then? Because if you had the Phoenix Saga and then you roll into the next episode and there's Jean, there's everybody.
She's back. There's no explanation.
Yeah. Hashtag what the.
Yeah. And then 2 years later, Jean's dead. It's like, wait, what happened?
Oh yeah.
So we managed to slide through that one, but yeah, today that wouldn't have happened, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I think I was so enamored with the series that stuff didn't really bother me. It was like, I'm sure it makes sense somewhere along the line. I'm just gonna roll with it.
And there's so many good, just little short, like 1 or 2 parters, or even like 4 parts, and they all say part 1 through 4. So it's like getting a little like trade paperback of like a run of stories. So like when I was going back, I was picking out these little chunks of episodes to watch like the little stories.
Nice. That's a nice way to do that.
Yeah. Is there certain episodes that stick out that are near and dear to your heart?
Yeah. Ones, and part of it was, the struggle to come up with what we thought were really strong story ideas. And then, occasionally one would come to us easily. And oh my God, I wish I could think of 10 more like that for this year, but it's the only one that came through. For me, that was One Man's Worth.
Oh my God.
Where
the 2-parter.
Yeah. Where Xavier, what would the world be like if the X-Men never existed?
And you came up with that. That was you.
Yeah. And that just seemed like boom. It was like out of the blue, like, okay, It's a Wonderful Life and City on the Edge of Forever from Star Trek, where one person changes the course of history.
And you came up with that, and in pitching that to Marvel, Bob Harris.
Yeah, Bob Harris loved it. And like 10 months later, they started Age of Apocalypse, which had basically the same setup.
But so the point of that is Age of Apocalypse came out of your idea for One Man's Worth.
I was going to say, I was watching One Man's Worth this week, and just in the future when like Magneto's leading the then X-Men, and even the aesthetic of a lot of the characters looked so much like their Age of Apocalypse versions, and I was
That's
like,
wild.
wow. And then I went online and I was like, when did this come out and when did that come out?
Right. Well, that's true, because animation time takes so much longer, but that is, and I love how Larry Houston and how they did the characters. I love that in the horrible Futureverse. Gambit is missing an arm, and you go, what the hell? Gambit is missing an arm? And these are spectacular moments, but the one that kills us, but the one that makes the thing work is that in this horrible, horrible hellscape, Wolverine and Storm have found each other and are in love, and they are happily married.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say what the kids say now. I shipped that. I love Logan and Storm. I remember watching that last summer, and I told my wife, I was like, "You have got to watch this. I like this. I think it's one of the episodes I didn't watch as much as a kid, and it like an arrow through my heart. I loved it so much, and I love the diner scene. Where like
in the Rip Van Winkle diner, which I noticed this time.
Yeah. No, that meant like so much to me because again, the show, it really provided me a moral compass. And I'm going to go into a personal story, whether you guys want it or not. When I was in high school, a freshman in high school, I got mugged by a group of kids, a group of Black kids. And I only say that because it is important to the story, because afterwards I was terrified I'm going to be racist. Like, I was so scared to death of that. And I kept thinking back to X-Men and like Friends of Humanity and being, and I was, 13, 14 when it happened. And I knew that was something I had to overcome, I knew that I didn't want to be a member of the Friends of Humanity and so that really helped, I think, kind of heal from that, because I felt like that was such an easy kind of pitfall to kind of just get lost in. That was always really profound. It's like, I don't want to be like those jerks in X-Men. That's just, didn't want to let my ignorance and my bad experience influence how I was going to navigate the world. And so, so if anything, thank you for that, because that meant the world to me. And it definitely helped define who I am. My wife is Black. And so that's why the whole Logan Storm thing was like, oh my God, I feel seen. And my wife was like, you feel seen? Like, come on. But it was just, I'm just so glad that you were able to tell those stories, those deep and complex ones. I meant to tell the story towards the end, but when you mentioned, one man's worth, it felt like, okay, this is it. This is my moment.
That one kills me. It was good, darling. It was the best tough guy. And
I know.
Season 4? Was that season 4?
Yeah.
It's like, why didn't we know this earlier? Why didn't we get them together sooner in the good world? And you realize it glanced off like a satellite in orbit. It's not going to happen in our world.
But
and that's the
I do love
sacrifice
how
they
at the
made.
end, Xavier's kind of looking at them with that little like knowledge.
He knows.
And I'm just
He knows what's up.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I have these two next to each other. I have such an obnoxious collection. If you haven't figured it out already,
We got a whole sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I greatness there.
Well, I also was trying to hide the catastrophe that is this room, so I thought this would be a great display. But what other episodes stuck out? I'm just so curious and kind of hungry for
what Julie
more.
came up with that a friend of hers wrote.
Stephanie Matheson wrote it, came up with what became Beauty and the Beast, the script in season 2, where Beast falls in love with a blind woman and realizes she's falling for him. And that was, a tip of the hat to Charlie Chaplin,
City Lights.
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yes.
and literally Beauty and the Beast. And the whole thing about
I never.
City Lights. That's one of our favorites.
Yeah,
and,
big Chaplin
and the
fans.
idea is, for Beast, who is the most other of all the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the coolest with his mutancy. He's the most at ease with it normally. But this story pushed him over the edge.
Oh my God. And that one, and then Stephanie Matheson wrote it, and it kills me too.
It's so beautifully done, because that still tugs at the heartstrings, especially when there's that scene where Jean comes in, she's like, Hank, I thought you'd be hungry. And he's just a wreck, and he asked the question that everybody's asked, like, why am I like this? Like, why is this happening to me? That's something that everybody can connect to.
He's the one who's been sort of answering that, or not, the whole series, except this time he's the one asking that question.
Right.
And he's the one who's so hurt and harmed by that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And just a little side thing that we threw in there that still makes me cry. He's looking at his pictures of himself growing up.
In the scrapbook, the photo album.
And then after he changes, they stop.
If you go back and look, it's like him as a little baby, and then him in a swing, and him growing up, and then people in the football stand just sitting a little further away because he's starting to look different. And then as you realize he's now there's no more photographs. And it's like, oh my God, within his own family, that kind of. And then also he's looking at himself in a mirror, and he's so upset with himself and what he perceives himself to look like, and he throws a book at the mirror and shatters the mirror. It's like for Beast to throw a book.
I was about to say,
that moment, just look at us. I'm sorry, 30 years later, and we're still.
I'm getting teary-eyed too.
Yeah,
I mean, because these, it meant so much to us, especially now as adults, to kind of really get the gravity of those emotions, because how many of us have felt like life didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to, and kind of looking back at the starting line and seeing going left and going right. And it always amazes me how you hear about X-Men being like an allegory for racism, and how now X-Men has such a huge gay fan base, because that notion of feeling different. My family finds out, they're gonna excommunicate me, and I thought of that too in watching Beast, that again, like, I didn't ask to be this way. I didn't ask to be gay. I didn't ask to be a mutant. And it's like, I'm not overselling this or being over dramatic when I say that I feel like it's touched so many people. And I would imagine that it saved a lot of people too. Like, I know so many gay nerds who, cite X-Men as being like, this is kind of what helped me transition, or what helped me, came out. And it's wonderful. And I'm just so thankful that not only were you two a part of that, but you carried that torch so well. I mean, because it wasn't just like, I appreciate that you can say, well, it was Stan Lee and it was Jack Kirby, but I mean, it still could have gone a very different direction. And I think that the attention that you brought to it, and I love that, you didn't know too much beforehand, because it showed, the respect for the source material, the love for it, and it shows. I mean, it shines through, and I think that's one of the reasons why this show has aged so well, and it's so powerful. It's just, I told you this episode was going to be me just saying, "Aren't you? You guys are so great, and I love you so much."
No, it's just, and it's amazing for us to be able to have this kind of conversation and be able to enjoy these memories and go, yeah, this thing happened that way, and this thing happened there, and boy, this was, a stroke of luck that this occurred, and getting dark and heavy. But 1992, just in terms of where the world was at the time, there was an AIDS crisis that was unfolding that no one was allowed to talk about.
Rodney King had just happened.
Rodney King, these things were happening here in Los Angeles. I mean, globally, but and seeing this, and yet being charged with the telling of a Saturday morning kids cartoon, but being allowed to push it, to tell the stories that push it as hard as we could. That's how got to write the Nightcrawler episode, where
about faith. And
again, I swear to God, when you going back to when that happened, and Sidney Iwaner, Margaret's right-hand man, who went over every script for every show on Fox Kids.
Yeah, all of the shows that you loved at
Batman,
the time. This man went over every comma of every. I don't know how he had enough hours,
because he was on the phone with you for 6 hours every day.
He would wear me out with his micromanaging, but it was micromanaging pushing us, like, why is the scene in here, and can you make it more intense, please? But
so in the Nightcrawler episode, Sidney is himself, a Jewish guy, and then it's like, well, Sidney, I don't know if you understood this thing, you're dealing with Christianity, push it more. What? Push it more, push it harder.
Because we look back at the outline, or the premise, and there was a little more action. There were, James Bond
ski slope fights
with snowmobiles and stuff, and hidden gold, and there was, and he just kept saying, look, it's all about, and I agreed with him. It's all about introducing Nightcrawler through Wolverine. Mm-hmm. So it's about those two people. Cut out all this extraneous stuff. We can put action in somewhere else. This is going to be, a personal story, and ramp up all the religious stuff. Because we'd always been told for 15 years before this, you can't touch this on Saturday morning.
Tripwire. Don't go there.
It's going to blow up in your face. The network's going to be sued. You're going to get 100,000 angry letters from parents who think that you're handling the religion wrong. So it was not something that they wanted us that the censor was thrilled with us to do. But she was very careful. She said she laid out a lot of detailed rules about what we could and couldn't show. But then as soon as she laid down the rules, she was incredibly supportive and let us do it.
And even more so astonishing, I think, is the idea that there is in this show an examination of a person who has a deeply held Christian belief. Character Wolverine, who has lived longer than any of them, and is himself struggling in the world way. And then you got Gambit, who, a Cajun who you think would be all about, various
Catholicism or whatever.
And he's out there eating ice cream and shrimp going, no interest. Not me. Wow, that's incredible that whole conversation took place.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Things that we were proud of that we got to do in a way that we didn't think anyone could ever do.
And they let us.
And they let us.
I mean, it just seems like, again, lightning in a bottle, that everything was where it was supposed to be, the right people. There was one thing that stuck out to me in the book that I thought was hilarious was, I think it was in the development stages where it was going to be Cyclops and Xavier in a van, right? just with a dog, I think. And they were just looking for new.
Using Cerebro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Scooby X-Men. And you got to understand that different people out, I mean, I don't know, they spend $5 million a season on this, which is not very much for a TV show, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, people have interests and they're hoping to make a profit on what they're doing. And half the people out here, no one knows what's going to be successful. We've done shows we thought we'd written that were wonderful and nobody watched them. So there's no way to promise that to any of your partners in a project. And so what that has done to half the people out here, not everybody, thank God, but their business model is, okay, we've got a half an hour on Saturday morning. We're going to get a certain amount of advertising money, whether it's a flop, a medium, or a hit. We can't know. So let's make it for as little money as we can. So even if it's a flop, we'll break even or make a little money. So that's just their instinct going into it. They some of the people involved in the show, Haim Saban, and he'd be the first one to admit it, absolutely didn't care. He was the one that buttonholed Stan and said, look, it'd be great. We do it. It'd be so much fun. you put these two guys in a van, they have the computer, they go around, they find mutants. Well, how could it be easier than that?
Kids love funny dogs. Put in a funny dog.
Yeah. And so to him, that would mean, well, we could produce that for $3 million and everybody's going to make money. And it doesn't matter what a piece of garbage the show is, because that's not where he historically has made his profit. Now, this became a huge #1 hit for him. And he helped with the marketing. Fox marketing was wonderful on this. Then they showed it all over the world. So every time we bump into people from the four corners of the earth, they know the show.
Astonishing.
They said, like one guy that was Arabic said, well, it was on 2 channels. It was in English on one channel, it was on Arabic on another channel. That's how I learned English.
It's like, oh my God.
We were in Singapore and the Malaysian TSA.
I was wearing a shirt that said previously on X-Men.
Said X-Men. They
said, oh, we like X-Men.
There were 8 of them there to look through our bags. And this young woman said, oh, X-Men, we love Storm. She's so strong.
I said, the show? We worked on it.
They all lost their minds and came around for a selfie.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
This is 9,000 miles away.
30 years later.
And these people all grew up on our show, which is just too intense.
I swear, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, whenever I told my mom, and like, Mom, you will not believe who I got on the show. And I mentioned X-Men, and the first thing she does is because she watched those with me, and so
also it's the best theme song of any show.
Hands down. That intro too. I mean, just with the Blackbird coming in and Rogue throwing the Sentinel by the tentacles. That's something when I do my marathon and I get the option to skip intro and it's like, no.
Can we quick shout out to the man responsible for the music, which we are all
Ron Wasserman.
And he's on Twitter at Fisher the Band. I'm just saying this man gave us
that
X-Men, and he also gave us
Power Rangers,
the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme song.
He did those 2 back to back. He did those back to back, and just while he was on salary at Spawn. No,
So he gets nothing.
There's not a penny of residuals, not a penny of royalties.
That is.
He was just work for hire.
So we want to celebrate him because he deserves
absolutely. No, I hope I saw it because I follow him on iTunes, and I saw he's done some Power Rangers remixes, and I'm like, I would love for an X-Men animated series soundtrack to come out because I mean there's because there's so much great music just behind the scenes of it's like when I hear it, you know, like I would try to hum it, but I'm afraid I would butcher it. But it's just like, you know, some of the scenes where they're fighting or they're on a mission, it's like I get like flashbacks to, you know, being like, you know, what parent was I with that weekend when I watched that episode? You know, I mean, it's just like, I remember, Rob, I'm sure you probably know. I mean, do you remember the first time seeing the show?
Yeah, like I said, it was from a Pizza Hut tape. Because when this show came out, I was very young. I was like 3 years old when this came out. Yeah. But this was my first exposure to like, I mean, I'm sure I was exposed to superheroes, but this is like what got me into superheroes. Like I wouldn't have all these thousands of comic books behind me if I didn't grow up watching the show.
Yeah, no, it was. It's just funny looking back on, you know, when an episode would end, it's like laying awake at night, being like, how are they going to get out of this? Like Beast is in prison, you know, Morph's dead, you know, it's really heavy. And it's like, you know, it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I was 7 when the show came out, and just looking at the ceiling being like, oh, what are they going to do? Like, how are they going to, you know, like it was just soap opera for kids. And it was like, you know, and I would hate my parents if for every reason I had to miss it. Like, you have baseball. I don't care about baseball. There's bigger things happening in the world right now that need my attention. Like the X-Men wouldn't survive unless I was there to witness. Yeah.
But that's one thing I'm kind of sad about. So I have a 2.5-year-old son right now, and I'm just like, I don't think he'll ever experience like Saturday morning cartoons the same way we did. I feel like we were in the golden era of Saturday morning cartoons. I would wake up extra early on the weekend just so I could start from the first one and just watch everything.
That was appointment TV, and you could not binge it. I love binging stuff. I love it, but it affects you differently. It sticks in your head differently.
It's the
for
playground
5
talk,
years,
you know, not the water cooler talk. It's like at the playground every week. You have
the
like
playground
talk. You're talking about X-Men.
But it's what I love too about this show. So I went to school for production, and like most people, I wound up not doing that. Like I work in finance, which is I don't know how I got that gig, but you know, it's funny. So I work with all these people who are bankers, and they're closeted nerds. So I back when we would work in an actual building, you know, I would have like my figures at my desk, and people who wouldn't look like comic book fans were like, oh man, I remember this episode with Sabretooth and like fighting Wolverine in the Antarctic. And it's like, looking like Wolf of Wall Street. And you're like a Wolverine of Wall Street, like just, you know, just this closeted fan. But it's just so cool. Just the impact. And one thing I wanted to mention too is I caught this rewatching Apocalypse. You know, he has a line about we're going to take the ashes from this world and build a better one. And then he says that in one of the episodes, and I was just like, again, laying the foundation down, laying down the groundwork.
Well, but we've talked about this too. Again, the young ones that you were back then, up until 92 on Fox Kids with Batman, the animated series, and X-Men, the animated series, you would maybe once every 5 years, you might get the Superman movies came out, and that was a huge deal, but they came out like every
10 years. So we look back, and there were maybe 8 or 9 superhero movies over 50 years. And then there'd be a couple Batmans, a couple Supermans, and then they forget about it for 15 years. So it wasn't a genre.
It's a genre now. Superheroes, for good or ill, is a genre now. And again, I will say credit to X-Men and for opening the audience up or finding the audience for this kind of product, this kind of storytelling. And
all these hundreds of millions of repressed nerds that didn't have anybody to talk to about this stuff. Now they're the ones flocking to the movie theaters and making every other Marvel movie $1 billion movie.
And Margaret Lesch, from the day this thing got the hot ratings, kept going to the live action people at Fox saying, you got to make a movie. You got to make a movie.
In 93, she talked to one of her colleagues over at film production and said, we've got a #1 hit on Saturday morning. These are great characters. You really ought to look into this and make a movie. It's kid stuff. Don't talk to us. And 3 or 4 years later, it had stayed popular long enough. A couple people tried a couple scripts. They got into developing it, and gradually, in 2000, they got the movie. But it wasn't an immediate bing.
No.
That Fox got. Oh, we've stumbled onto a huge IP that we can exploit for 20 years.
But I'll say the success of the X-Men film was the thing that then allowed Marvel to explore the rest of its catalog, and that's how you get Iron Man. That's how you get the Thor films. Because this happened.
You have 2 huge X-Men hits, and okay, let's put Iron Man into development,
which would not have happened. Yeah.
No, I agree. It's incredible, and we were saying earlier, this is like the best time to be a fan, because I think seeing I never thought, like, I would daydream about, like, okay, well, who would be in the X-Men, as a movie, and I could never get past seeing like somebody in yellow spandex. So, but it was great to see that they worked around it, made it realistic, and my fan choice was always Patrick Stewart for Xavier. I don't know whobody else could have played him.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And they put serious money into it. They put serious talented people into it, and an amazing cast.
Oh my goodness.
We agree with you guys that when we saw the first couple of movies, and we were thrilled with parts of them and confused by a couple other parts of them, that the thing that seemed weaker to us than what we've been able to do is the women. Is that Storm and Rogue were really central to our storytelling, and were really kick-ass powers. And the first movie, it's like they didn't quite know what to do with either one. I mean, Rogue was kind of a Jubilee-like victim. That's okay.
Yeah.
Someone like, okay, you've lost Rogue as this kick-ass. Well, how about Storm? And they really didn't give Halle Berry anything to do in the first.
No, they didn't.
Movie.
You got Halle Berry. Come on.
And it's Storm, by the heavens, just like do some crazy stuff, like be theatrical. Like, oh, that's what I want.
I need to see a live action Rogue like punch through a wall and like fly, and I need to see that. That's
fun
like
Southern accent and the big hair. Especially those fun lines like, you look more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Like I want that dialogue. And it would totally work. I mean, you look at Guardians of the Galaxy. If I can get a talking tree, we can have Rogue flying around and Storm commanding the elements.
We agree. 100%.
Easy peasy.
Yep.
This is, I know we're kind of coming up on that hour or a little past it. I can't thank you enough for not even being on the show. Obviously, I'm very grateful, but just what you've done with these characters and how it's molded us and shaped us to be, good members of society. I mean, because again, always coming back to like, I would want to be, if I was in the show, if I was an animated character, like I would want to be somebody who would hang out with the X-Men and like support those guys. And I feel like now in today's climate, I feel like that, I think a lot more people could use that sentiment without getting too political. That's just my 2 cents. But yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask too, because my wife writes, I write. What advice do you have to people who like want to write or like get into writing? Because in the beginning of this show that Rob and I do, we would invite local comic book artists and writers, and we would try our best to promote their work. And so I think kind of circling back to that, I mean, what advice would you give to people who just not even want to break into business, but just wanted to like consistently tell stories?
Good news, bad news. It has never been an easier time to put words down on paper. Some way, somehow, you got
or on the web.
On the web, you got a cell phone. I used to do paper and pen, give yourself permission to realize that there's a whole range in the world of writing. There's a one-line poem. There's the 700-page novel. There is, in the world of screenwriting, there's TV animation, there's live action drama, it can get awfully splintered. So don't put it on yourself that you have to create this whole thing within a day, because that's not how
or
any of it
trying to
works.
figure out a market or something.
Yeah.
I think what's happened for people is they write what they believe in and they put it on the web, and somebody may notice it, or they have a friend that's a performer and they get the friend to read it.
Look something up.
It's the thing that we did, because we both each came from, we didn't start out in Hollywood. She came from Texas, I came from Tennessee.
No.
We came out here hoping to break into this and having no clue
at all,
and having no Google and no access to anything. And so just trying to hang out and talk to some people that are successful. But the key to it was, all the time that we were hoping to break in, we were writing. And it was easier with, I had a couple of co-writers, because they it's like going to the gym. They make you honest. You have to get a certain amount done. But I probably had, 15, 20 scripts written by the time I sold my first one out here. And I mean, half-hour sitcom specs, movies, miniseries, just, oh, that would be a cool story to tell. And nobody may ever see those. But the day that I got an opportunity, a neighbor was working at Hanna-Barbera, and he said, oh, we just got a bunch of show orders. Do you have anything I can show my boss? I said, yeah, what kind of thing? So short and funny. And so I had a couple sitcom specs. And so I went in, and she said, okay, this guy's not perfect, but he seems he can write okay. She opened the door. I got my foot saying, you can come and pitch to us. Which
is a different skill set too. That's
which I owe this guy forever for taking it to his boss, and I owe to the boss for taking the 20 minutes to read the thing, however much of it she read. And if I hadn't been writing for 7 or 8 years and if I had that opportunity, like, oh, I've been thinking about a lot of stuff, I have a lot of great ideas, but now I don't have anything to give her. Or I've got, 11 dark crime thrillers,
which could be fine, but that's not what she needed.
Right. I had all sorts of things to kind of, it's like an artist with a portfolio. Disney used to, when we were at Disney for 3 years, they used to quarterly have a deal where artists come bring their portfolio into the professionals that were working there to show off their skill. And there's nothing to keep somebody from drawing and getting better at it. And you go in, and then they have something to look at. If you've got ideas, you got nothing to look at. So the thing that we always told ourselves and tell lots of writers when they're younger was just keep writing it. And if it only ends up in your drawer, or only ends up, annoying your spouse, that's cool, because you've gotten better over writing that thing. And one day, the thing I showed her was 3 years old. One day, somebody want to see that kind of thing, and if it's in your drawer, you can show it. So yeah, it's very frustrating. It's the hardest thing to do is work creatively without a deadline and without a paycheck.
Right.
But we did, and it was just, I think, because we enjoyed doing that more than even going to the movies or going to a ball game or whatever it was. Writing was more fun, and we just kept doing it.
But I'll give you permission too, not to write a script in a day. If you can do that, more power to you. But it really is a process, and it can be so frustrating. If it's not done, it doesn't get done in a day.
Yeah, so, and when we're doing TV shows, when there's a very strict series of deadlines, you've got 40 of them, and we need you to final one a week. Mm-hmm. It became very structured, like story idea, outline, script, revision, storyline. And so, because it took so much effort to write 35, 40-page script, if your story wasn't a solid outline before it got there, there's some people that can write without doing that structural step, but we can't. It just, you get very scared, like, oh my God, I'm 30 pages in and the story doesn't make any sense. I should have worked this out at the 8-page outline phase. And
in a TV production situation, you don't have time to go back and do that. You've got to do it first. You've got to do it first. You've got to do it in stages.
And we also have so many people that we work with, the dozens, the hundreds that are listed in the production book there, that they are waiting, scratching with bated breath they have to design stuff, or they have to start looking up, doing research for what a certain talent looks like, or and so if you can give them a 1-page story idea, that gives them a head start, and then they get the 8-page outline. They know all the different characters they have to design. Everybody's working off of this stuff while you were flushing it out into a 35, 40-page script. So in our practical world, there was no way to get around doing it in stages. It just was the nature. It's like, I don't know, magazine writing. You've got magazine comes out New Yorker comes out every week. You can't say, well, give me a couple more weeks. There's a deadline.
Now, in the arena that we work in, which again is within the world of writing, is specifically television and film and such. I'm going to butcher his name, but on Twitter, I don't know if I can hold that up there and you can see it. Let's see. Yes, right there. If you can read that. He is at Twitter. At OK.
Javier Grillo Marflash.
He has got a link on his Twitter profile. His handle is OKBJGM. It's an acronym. I don't know what it stands for, but OKBJGM. He has got a link there that goes to his own website, and he has got literally hundreds of pitch Bibles, of documents, of scripts, graphic novel stuff. This is a man who's been working for years in this. He's currently on The Witcher and Cowboy Bebop, did Dark Crystal, did The 100, did Medium, has done Lost. He's got it's an embarrassment of riches, and it's right there for free.
He's a really serious guy, and he's got examples, because it's so hard if you haven't been in the middle of it to know what the form should look like, or do people make a 3-page story pitch, or a 10-page story pitch, or does this annoy people if it's too long? Is it incomplete if it's too short?
I'm telling you, go look up his link. Go look him up.
I'm going to.
That's one resource. That's just one. There are hundreds out there, thousands that neither one of us have.
Yeah, we used to have to go through old used bookstores to see if we could find a dusty old copy of a script.
Not that I'm bitter.
Back in the dark ages.
Right. Yeah. I thank you for that. Because we had this joke on the show where if we review like a TV show or a movie, I say, well, now we're going to go to what if Paul wrote this, and then I kind of give my pitch on what I would do. So I'll have to check that out, because I love to write, and but thank you for inspiring other storytellers. Rob, any final thoughts, questions, concerns, comments?
I just hope once people can meet in large gatherings safely again, all of the people who have spent the past 2 years binging this on Disney Plus can find you guys at a con and thank you. And
all right.
Thank you for that.
We'll try to come out to the East Coast one of these days. We were supposed to go to the New York con
first time
a year
ever
ago, and it went virtual, and we participated, and
I'm bitter and sad because the book, The Art and Making of X-Men the Animated Series,
was coming out
October 13th of last year, and we haven't been able to go anywhere. And it's breaking my heart. So I'm hoping that we can
maybe next year feels good. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And if you're in Denver,
absolutely.
Hey, would love
lunch
that.
Lunch is on me. Dollar Menu McDonald's.
Ooh,
we are there, Paul.
Absolutely. But if folks want to follow us, I'm just going to do our quick pitch.
No, please plug away.
We are at X-Men TAS for X-Men the Animated Series. So X-Men TAS. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, not as much as we should be. I'm trying to keep up with the Facebook, and we have our own webpage, xmentas.com. where we talk about the books, we have a lot of
old anecdotes and images and stuff on the website.
So please seek us out as best you can.
Yeah. You heard it here. Our 3 listeners. I love the books, excuse me, because I also loved previously. This was fantastic. And of course, the art and the making of, I mean, it's just, it's just such a fantastic read. I mean, it's a quick read too. I mean, because you just fly through it, because it's got amazing art, amazing stories. It's so well done. And so thank you for writing that. Thank you for writing the X-Men, and thanks for writing those books. because I love behind the scenes stuff, so it checks all the right boxes for me.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate your kindness and generosity. Sincerely, really appreciate it. And for anybody still listening, don't forget about us. We're Graphic Multiverse. Also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Give us some love on iTunes. We could use some stars. And as always, have fun exploring the multiverse.